Atheist Antidote starts now.
He's a shot of youthful relevance in the arm of the conservative movement. And now your fearless host, Brock Lawley.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brock Lawley. I am your host. This is the Atheist Antidote Show. Thank you very much for joining me. You know, today's going to be another one of these Economic 101 segments. And I know, spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down, and this tends to be medicine. So I got to bring the sugar. And I'm going to try. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen? So much of your life, and my life, and your children's life, and your parents' life, and your grandparents' life, it all hinges on economics. You know, a lot of people don't realize that. You know, you hear the word economics, you start seeing theorems and numbers float by in your head, and you just instinctively yawn. But you shouldn't. Economics is really just the study of human beings, what they do with limited resources, how they behave, how you delegate scarcity. That's really what economics is. I mean, it's a lot of things, but that's a nice little Cliff Notes version. And essentially, the left is so much better than the right at branding economics. What's unfortunate for society is the right is so much better than the left at actually executing economics. No, they're not, Brock. No, they're not. That's right. No, they're not. You know, because the left care, and the left are cool. That's right, and they care about us. And you know what the right does? They care about the rich, the 1%. That's all they care about. That's it. But the left, they got our back. They're massaging our back, the deep tissue massage, Brock. That's what's happening. And the right, they don't care about us. They're just trying to economically rape us. What I want to hear about is who's going to spread some wealth around to me. That's what you hear, right? That's pretty much it. We're going to give it to the guy who's got money. We're going to stick it to him. That's the leftist message. Heck, I just heard the president talk to the country for the 19th time. He talked about how he was going to pivot to economic vibrancy, to the economy, to jobs. Heck, that's what people care about, right? That's what Obama just said to me. I'm going to talk about economics. That's right. Economics. Yep. The jobs. That's what you care about. That's what I care about. That's what I cared about the last 19 times I gave the same speech. This time I mean it. No more gay marriage, no more illegal immigration, no more guns. This time is going to be economics. Well, I don't understand what threw his game off the last 18 times, but whatever. But I listened. And you know what he said? Nothing. In fact, you could have pressed the rerun button on every single economic speech the guy's made the last 18 times, and you would have heard the same thing. I want to build up the middle class. You know, that's right. Me, Barack Obama, cares about the middle class because we want to grow our economy out from the middle, like a gut. Like a big, fat plumber's gut. We want to grow that middle out, not from the top down. No, from the middle out. Sounds good. I'm hearing this. All right, Barack Obama, that's right, from the middle out, because that's what I am, the middle. Actually, no, I used to be in the middle before your economy took a dump on my face. Now, I'm circling on a drain. But I still see myself as the middle, and you're going to give it to the rich guy, and you're going to look out for the middle. I'm not quite sure how. I've been listening to this whole speech. You haven't said anything about that, but I believe you. Ladies and gentlemen, here's why that doesn't work. And here's why the president is lying. Because about 18 times in that speech, he said the word government. He said the word state. He said, we got to do this, meaning the state. And then we got to twist this, meaning the government. And then we got to rearrange this, meaning the government. Well, here's the thing he forgets to tell you. Government doesn't create prosperity. Government sucks prosperity like a hickey in a car, in a makeout section. It just sucks like a parasite. You know, you might make prosperity. You and your boy who have a good idea might make prosperity. Your uncle who's a good mechanic, he might make prosperity. Your father who has an engineering degree and has an imagination, he might make prosperity. But Uncle Sam, pulling the little puppet strings, doesn't make anything. He just takes. He takes from the private sector, and then he just gives out to get votes. Here's the problem with Obama's model. Whenever the president has this kind of mentality that the government's going to create jobs, that the government's going to be this arbitrary of prosperity, everybody who actually is making jobs sucks in because they're scared to death. Kind of like a turtle. Back into the shell. And they take all their jobs and their wealth and their risk and all the things that actually do make money, sucks back into that shell, and everything comes to a screeching halt. Gridlock traffic. Heck, it's a Friday afternoon. You might be sitting in that grid-like traffic right now. Here's how economic vibrancy actually happens. Instead of a whole nation with their hand out, because they're forced into that situation, most of them because of economic illiteracy, because the left is in governance, you want an entire country of prosperous working people kicking into the treasury. Not taking from the treasury, kicking into the treasury. Then you have coffers of abundance. And the irony, of course, being, and I've always thought this was interesting ever since I was in college, all the stuff that the left has wet dreams about, Uncle Sam just doling out dough. Those things never work so smoothly as to when a Republican or a conservative is in office, because the actual coffers are full because people are prosperous and working. No, that's not true. That's not true. The Republicans destroy everything. I know because MSNBC told me so. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. You know how they'll get you to think, hey, all they're doing is looking out for the rich business guy. That's because the rich business guy is employing people with actual prosperity, with actual wealth creation. See, when the government employs people, they're only able to do that by taking from the private sector, which is the only real wealth creation that exists. Organizations like Apple, organizations like Verizon, actually servicing the community with things they want. The other thing that you need to understand about economics is the left and people like Obama, they look at the economy like a pie, like a Thanksgiving Day pumpkin pie. They think the rich guy's getting this big, huge slice of pie, right? And if the rich guy gets this big, huge slice of pie, then the little guy, he only gets this little tiny slice of pie. And so the government, Obama's omnipotent sovereign government, is going to go in there and he's going to beat back that guy with his big, huge spatula who's taking too much pie. And he's going to make the little guy with the little tiny fork just trying to get some crumbs up in his mouth. He's going to widen that guy's fork and he's going to give the pie equality. But here's the problem. That's not how the economy works at all. There is no fixed pie. The reason that America is a prosperous nation is because we don't look at an economy like that. That's the way the Soviet Union looked at an economy. They have these government officials doling out this and making these decisions in a bureaucratic, nightmare. But that's not how America looked at it. America turned its own people free to produce and imagine and create. And when you think about things like that, there's no fixed pie. You just bake more and more and more and more pies until you have an entire bakery, a Panera's bread of pie. And pie just keeps rolling out. Granted, some people will have more pie than other people. That is true. People who try to say that isn't true aren't telling the truth. But see, that's just the way it's going to be. That's just the way it's going to work. Because the guy who's out there busting his butt, the guy who's out there making all kinds of magic happen on the economic front, granted, as a consequence of that, he is going to have bigger pie. That's true. But the guy who doesn't really work like that, the guy who doesn't think about himself like that, the guy who's not entrepreneurial, here's the thing they don't tell you. He works for the guy who is like that. So the irony is his pie's bigger too, just as a matter of happenstance. And I'll prove to you, there's guys out there right now, no, you're not telling the truth, Brock. It's not like that. There's only one fixed pie, and the 1% hogging all the pie. There's a huge wealth disparity, and I heard that on MSNBC too. There's a big gap between the rich and the poor, Brock. Well, that's true. That's absolutely true, but that's not the measure. The measure shouldn't be whether there's a big disparity gap between the rich and the poor. The measure should be how well is the poor doing. And I'll prove it to you. If you go down to Johannesburg in South Africa, you're going to see people called poor. And those people are crapping in their own huts, And those people are starving to death. Those are the people that you see in the commercials, the heartbroken commercials where the kids' ribs are sucked in. That's one definition of poor. And then you're going to see American poor. We have a flat screen, an iPhone, a welfare check. That's a whole nother standard of poor. That's the measure of economic vibrancy that one should use, not the gap between the rich and poor. That's just some logistic trickery that the left gets you to buy into so that you get on board with this class warfare. What you should be concerned about is opportunity, vibrancy, what's ahead of you, what can be done. What opportunities do you have in front of you? I'll prove to you that there's not a fixed pie. When I was in high school, Steve Jobs and his boys were in a little garage tinkering around with some electronics with nothing but shoe shine and a dream, baby. Today, they're the most butt-kicking economic force on the face of the earth. Now, if it's a fixed pie, where did all these iPhones come from? Where did all these jobs come from? Where did all these millionaires come from? Back in the 90s, the left would have convinced you that this is just all there was. Whatever there was then, there's nothing new and there's nothing new coming down the bend. But that couldn't possibly be true. Because jump ahead to 2013 and you have this entire enterprise that changed the face of the earth, changed the way we communicate with each other, changed the way we do business, changed the way we do everything. We educate our children. Everything has changed. The paradigm is totally tilted because of these people tinkering around a garage. It can't be a fixed pie. It can't possibly be a fixed pie because they didn't exist in the 90s. Do you see what I'm saying? And that can be the case right now. If these inbred, socialist, Marxist, regressive thinkers were not pulling the economic strings with their economic illiteracy. This is the truth, ladies and gentlemen, whether you've bought into it or not. This is actually the truth. And the sooner people get this model of thinking downloaded into their, cerebral cortex instead of that Marxist mush, all that fecal matter that the professors defecated in their mind. We got to clean all that crap out, and we need to start thinking about economics the way we need to think about it, the way it actually works. We're going to be flush with prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the Atheist Editor Show.
You are listening to the Atheist Antidote Show.
Approche les productions.